Let's make everyone's favorite soap that I make. This is also my favorite and my least favorite soap. Yes, you heard correctly. This is my favorite and my least favorite soap, and I will explain why. So, this is my Snowy Barn soap. If you've been following me for a while, you know I make this every fall. The first thing I have to do is make a complete white soap because I'm going to end up shredding this and using this as the snow in my soap. So the first thing I had to do was create just a pure white soap. So I let that white soap sit for a while, probably at least a week before I had a chance to actually make the soap. I think in the back of my mind, I was just putting it off because this soap takes forever and a day to make. At least for me, it does. So when I decided the day that I was going to make this soap and get this over and done with, I grabbed my the white soap that you saw me make previously, and I am cutting it up into smaller pieces and shredding it. And I choose to shred my soap using just an actual, like a cheese grater. This is what works best for me. I have tried a food processor, and I have tried one of those manual, those graters like you get your cheese shredded at like Olive Garden. I've tried both of those, and the soap it just doesn't work with soap. It gets really gummy. It gets too hot, so it just doesn't work for me. So this is what works the best for me. Next, in my large bucket, I have my oils and butters, and in my smaller bucket, I have my lye water solution with my blue colorant already mixed in. I am pouring that solution into my larger bucket, and then I am mixing this into emulsion. And then I'm grabbing that white shredded soap that I had shredded earlier, and I'm adding that to my bucket and letting my stick blender really chop that up into fine pieces. And then I'm adding my fragrance oil and mixing that by hand. The fragrance oil I'm using is called White Christmas. This is a very strong pine and evergreen scent. It smells like a Christmas tree farm. I will be using a set of scrapers for this design. So I place my scraper at the end so I can kind of see where I need to fill the mold to. I'm using this as a guide. So I'm pouring this blue soap mixture into my molds. So I am pouring 3 molds, and then when I scrape out what I don't need from those 3 molds, I am pouring that into a fourth mold. So my fourth mold will end up being it won't be a perfect design, but it will have some air pockets in it because it always happens because it's not fluid and I'm just kind of pushing it into place. So after this blue soap had set up enough, I am using my first scraper and I'm scraping that design. So when I scrape, you'll see that some of the soap comes out. So that soap that I am pulling out is actually going into another mold. You'll also see me adding a little bit of soap and then re-scraping, and then I do that over and over and over until the scrape design looks perfect. I do this because sometimes there's air pockets, or sometimes like that those little white pieces of snow that I had added. Sometimes it'll leave drag marks that I didn't want in the design. So I have to go through this over and over and over and keep adding a little bit of soap and then re-scraping, and it takes a while to make sure you get the perfect scrape. After I was done with scraping the blue part of the soap, I am now making another batch of soap, and this is going to be white, and this is going to be the roof of the barn. So this is going to be my snowy barn soap. So I wanted the roof of the barn to have white snow on it. So this is what I'm pouring next. And I'm pouring that white soap right into that groove where the barn roof is going to be. And then I am mixing a small batch of black soap, and this is going to go on the ridged design you see on the left side of the mold. This is going to be the trees that you see in the distance. So kind of like like almost like shadows or a silhouette of trees. So I am pouring some black soap over the left part of the mold. And then I have to wait until the white soap and the black soap had set up, and then I can scrape my second design. If I was to scrape right away, it would be liquid and it wouldn't it wouldn't have formed the design that I needed. So I had to wait until it was set up and then I can scrape. Next, I am mixing up a batch of red soap, and this is going to be for the barn itself. And then I'm pouring that red soap right into the groove on top of where the white roof is. And after my red soap had set up, I am scraping my next design. And I have learned in the past of this red portion, I really have to let my soap set up really well before I can scrape this, because I have to add a black door after this. And if I don't let this red set up enough, I won't have that tiny little line. It's a very delicate line in the center of the soap. I won't have that if I don't let it set up enough. So I am now scraping, and then you can also see me adding more soap where there was air pockets or whatever. So the red part always seems to take me the longest time to complete. Next, I'm mixing a very small batch of black soap, and this is going to be for that door that I just mentioned a minute ago. So you can probably see in the molds where there's a line, a little groove in the very center of the soap. That is for the door of the barn. So I'm going to actually pour this into a paper cup, so I have a little bit, it'll be a little bit easier for me to pour, it'll give me a little bit better precision to get it right into that little groove. And after that black soap had set up, I am scraping again. The last batch I need to make for this soap is an all white batch of soap. This is going to be for the snow that's on the ground that's surrounding the barn. And then I just pour this white soap to fill the remainder of my molds. And then I'm just using a flat spatula to level off the very top, because this is actually going to be the very bottom of the soap. And when I'm done, I have 4 loaves of soap. And this is where I am elated that I am finally done pouring the soap, because I don't enjoy making this soap. I just don't enjoy it because it takes so long, and it is the messiest soap I have ever had to make. Every single time I make a huge mess, and I have tons of containers and utensils, everything. Look at this disaster. So all of this will now have to be cleaned, and that is why I don't like this soap. And then the next day, my favorite part is finally here, the time for me to unmold and cut this soap. And I just hope every time that the design comes out as I intended. And then I'm grabbing my multi-bar cutter and cutting these loaves into individual bars, and I'm opening it so you guys can see it first. And yes, we have success. And this is why this is my favorite soap. I just love the design. I live in upstate New York, and you can drive down any back road in upstate New York and see this scene of a barn, a red barn with snow in the background, and it's such a beautiful scene. And that is why I love this soap. I don't like creating it because it takes forever, and I don't like the cleanup because it's a huge mess, but I love the design. When it's all said and done, this is my favorite soap because it is so beautiful. Because to me, this soap is what home looks like. These soaps are now headed to my curing racks for the next 4 weeks, but you can pre-order these on my website right now at earthrella.com, but they will not begin shipping until the week of November 10th. This soap never lasts long and always sells out very quickly, so if you want to make sure you get these bars, I would highly recommend that you pre-order them as soon as you can. If you could like, share, or leave a comment and letting me know what you think of these soaps, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching.